As the snow continues to fall outside on the day of recording, our format is about to freeze over a little bit here as well. Hey guys, this is GamerCal. Welcome to another Pokemon trading card game history video. This time we're going over what is possibly the worst rotation of all time, or it's at the very least my absolute least favorite rotation. The 2020 season. This is one that I was actually privy to, right, because I was playing on TCGO at the time. And yeah, I just come in at Unbroken Bonds, gotten a bunch of stuff out of that, and then rotation hits and all of the consistency of the format just disappears. And yeah, I have a lot of decks from the next two sets, way more saved than what I had from the previous stuff, but I would be really hesitant to say that this was a good thing for this for the format. We were kind of looking into this a little bit, and it seems like Japan didn't rotate until the end of the Sun and Moon block, and Sword and Shield introduces a lot more consistency stuff like Quick Ball and Evolution and Sense that will definitely help out. It's one of the good things you can say about Starter Gen 8. However, the problem, of course, is that we have a couple of sets, and a side set, technically, that get in the way of that. And so we're going to have a lot of time where there's no consistency for anything that isn't a GX or a Psychic type, basically. Super, super frustrating. So, let's go over the actual sets that we have here. There's an awful lot of cards to talk about. It's mostly historical, but there's so many trainers and stuff going here as well that, yeah, let's just not waste too much time with it. We have the Sun and Moon base set, which is mostly the consistency set here, because we have 3 different types of Pokeball in this set, which are rotating. You know, kind of weird how that ends up working out. But yeah, sometimes you just don't get extra stuff like that printed during a generation, and it's very unfortunate. We have the Guardians Rising set here as well, which a lot of people will know as the Tapu Lele set, but there's a lot of other good things in here as well, you know, the Garbodor or something. I don't want to go too much into it before we get there, but like, yeah, Garb is there, Sylveon was a fun thing, there's a bunch of, not a lot of trainers to go, but quite a lot of the, again, consistency recovery type stuff here as well. So, bunch of things down here that are worth noting. We have Burning Shadows, which was the 2018 World set. The God of War Glycopod sort of stuff up here. Very, very strong set when this came out. So, yeah, I mean, God of War won Worlds in 2018, and it had been out for like a week. So, you know, clearly was a strong set as well. Not a lot of trainers in this one either, but a couple which are very noteworthy to be disappearing here. Then we have the side set Shining Legends. This is the Zoroark set, more or less. And realistically, this thing still won the NAIC before it rotated. So the very last major tournament that it was available for, it won. So yeah, some decks just do that. Mew is another good example of that, right? Where it just kind of wins. And hey, it's rotating soon, so you guys can rest easy in standard format. And then finally we have Crimson Invasion for the main sets. We don't actually get to keep all of the Ultra Beasts, which is funky. Basically all the GX Ultra Beasts in this set do actually rotate. The rotation is for Ultra Prism on, because that's the start of the Prism Star mechanic, and that's the one they went with instead of the Ultra Beast tag. So yeah, we lose some stuff out with that, which is very weird, but hey, such is the way. We also have a lot of promos that get rotated here, up until promo number 93 with this Marshadow here. All of these get rotated. I believe there's one alt art in here for the Tapu Koko, which is why there's like 94 cards in this bit. It's just being kind of strange. But there's a lot of stuff here, which is also pretty good. Many reprints, actually, because this is what promos are usually for, is they like reprint stuff like, say, Espeon GX, which was in the first Sun and Moon set. Stuff like that gets reprinted in promos all the time, and nowadays it will have the regulation mark for making sure when stuff isn't in rotation. But we haven't quite gotten there yet, because that debuted in Sword and Shield base. So it's still a bit of a hassle trying to work out what does and doesn't rotate. But all of this, at least barring any reprints that we will talk about in a sec with stuff like these, all of this will rotate as well, and there's a lot to consider within this. So, Because of how many cards there are, I'm going to try and be brief about everything here, but we'll go over our categories as usual. We have 15 cards at the top here, which I have identified that do not rotate, and I have given the prints of the cards for that, as to why they don't rotate. There are 3 cards which do rotate, but come back in Sun and Moon, not Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield. I keep making that mistake between Gen 7 and 8. They come back in Sword and Shield base set. So we have Energy Retrieval, we have Great Ball, and Pokemon Catcher. All of these temporarily rotate, but they will be returning in the future. Then I have 3 different categories for our actual stuff that rotates. We've got what I consider to be the meta threats at the moment, or things which are genuinely strong and will be greatly missed, because a lot of decks took advantage of these. We have the items, trainer cards just in general, plus the 2 special energy that rotate. Surprising hits there, as we can see. And then 75 cards in the quote-unquote off-meta or like historically valuable category. This is usually the slightly more speculative stuff, but it's like whether they've been good in the past, whether we've played them personally sometimes come into this as well. Things like the Venusaur over here is a personal pick more than it was a top-tier pick. But yeah, a lot of these cards used to be good, but due to the way that the TCG happens to go, right, every card game just moves forward and stronger cards keep coming out. A lot of these don't really stick anymore, but they have been viable in the past, so we will note them there. So, for the stuff that does not rotate, Silvally gets a print in Ultra Prism. This is one I keep forgetting about, to be honest, but the Silvally GX does actually stay in format, so you've got your Zero Retreat Basics is pretty good. We do lose a couple of its memories though, which make it the key types you need for the format, so this isn't going to be particularly strong, but it's still noteworthy anyway. Mimikyu, I thought this rotated actually, but this is the promo 99 and it does not have an alternate art. So yeah, the Psychic type Mimikyu stays. This makes Malamar able to copycat Flare Strikes and stuff still, so it's pretty good. The Solgaleo GX got a gold print in Ultra Prism, so did the Lunala, but the Lunala is not competitively noteworthy, unlike this thing. So yeah, I mean, I have still seen Solgaleo decks after this because of the promo one as well, so kind of noteworthy. Pheromosa, Xurkitree, and Celesteela all stay because they got full art prints in Ultra Prism. They did initially get promo prints from Crimson Invasion before UPR came out, but yeah, they stay because of that. Unfortunately, Crushing Hammer stays because of Ultra Prism as well, because it did get a full art print there, otherwise this would have rotated and I would have been happy. I think it comes back in Sword Shield base anyway, so whatever. Energy Recycler stays in because of Forbidden Light giving it a print. This is the last time until Modern, which it's like current standard where it is in format, so there's that. Energy Switch stays because of the Celestial Storm print. There's same with like Super Scoop Up over here, also stays because of that. Pekin Red card, not really a card you see very often, especially not with Reset Stamp coming out of Unified Minds, but Ultra Prism keeps this in format, so I guess some control decks could use that. One that I forgot, and is the reason I have to redo the video here, is Lana actually got a full print in Ultra Prism. And yeah, I only noticed this because the final page that we have access to for decks in PTCG Legends actually has one that plays Lana. I was like, that's not in format, is it? No, the full art is. So she stays. Decent healing, I suppose, so for that sort of deck is kind of nice. Lily got a regular and a full art print in Ultra Prism, so she stays in format, which is not too bad at all. Lucy, although she's about to get wrecked by Gen 8's format change stuff, but you know, we've got a couple of sets before that. Lucamine got a full art print in Ultra Prism as well, so she stays. Unfortunately, we do have the potential Surge Loops and stuff, control decks to use this with, so blah, but whatever. And then Rainbow Energy gets its final printing in Celestial Storm, so yeah, this is the last time we ever see this card. It will rotate in the Rebel Clash format, so yeah. Mentioned the ones that don't rotate, but technically rotate but come back. Pokemon Catcher is an interesting one to see here, because this kind of signifies the philosophy of this particular stuff, is that gusting is non-existent, more or less. There will be Great Catcher in Cosmic Eclipse, but yeah, we basically have custom catcher and nothing else for gusting, which is kind of fun. We'll go over that as we get to this bit. So, meta Pokemon that rotate. Alolan Vulpix is a huge one, because Alolan Ninetales is still really good. Both the GX and the non-GX ones are quite strong. The non-GX ones are really good for being able to take on decks like Reshizard pretty easily. Yeah, not being able to search out your Pokemon is a big theme of this rotation, unfortunately, and this is a huge one that would have helped a ton, especially for the Stage 2 decks and stuff, because being able to go Beacon, search out like 2 Pokemon, and then one of them being the Ninetales that you could rare candy with, unfortunate. Alolan Muck I've shifted up to the meta thing because it was played in quite a few things. It's usually with the Ditto so that you could evolve into this without using the Grimer, but Blacephalon decks or deck stuff like that would play a ton, and basics having no abilities is really powerful for a ton of these things. Yeah, it's going. We don't have access to that type of thing until Galarian Wheezing comes back in for ability stuff, and that is only when it's active, so cool. Lapras is noteworthy because it is sometimes used in Quagsire and Garnadel decks at the moment, and it does one-shot Reshizard, so it is pretty powerful, to be honest with you. 160 hitting one of the best decks in the format, which will basically be the best deck in the format as we move on, so that's kind of cool, I suppose. Eevee, Energy Evolution going, makes me very, very sad. I think this is the last time we see this at the moment as well. Clearly I've played a few Evolution decks as we've gone through, and they have been very fun at least. But yeah, this one is a huge hit. I do like my stuff that way. I'm still going to play an Eevee deck in Cosmic Eclipse if we've got enough time to show it, but it's a far cry from what it was without this card. Real shame. Pseudo-Widow is not seen super often at the moment because Zoroark has kind of fallen off in damage output at the very least, but this card was absolutely huge during most of Sun and Moon's time because stopping the opponent from having a full bench is really nice, even if it comes at the cost of one of your own. Raikou was really good for Pikarom decks. The fact that it could accelerate for free if you put Thunder Mountain in play was pretty strong for that deck. And as single prizer, it doesn't do the most damage out there, but it's single prizer still. You don't give up too much advantage with it being up there, and yeah, it's just strong too. If you can't get the full blitz that turn, then being able to do this for 0 is also a very good option. Gardevoir GX rotates. This was actually still seeing play in the Unbroken Bonds format. It did top a couple of regionals and stuff as well. So, surprisingly, I mean, it's because of triple acceleration energy that this thing actually stayed relevant, but it's surprising in a way. Like a Stage 2 GX like this just stayed good the whole time. But I think it's because Reshizard also takes a lot of energy to attack, so you can trade with that fairly well. Even though Flare Strike without any damage buffs one-shots you, that's a bit concerning. Still really good. Trash Launch Garbodor goes as well. This did taper off quite a bit, but the decks are getting more item heavy as we go, and this could still have seen a lot of play. I think it did top once or twice in Unbroken Bonds, but it definitely was played in team-ups, so pretty relevant still. Obviously Zoroark goes away, one of the best cards of all time. Trade is just absolutely ridiculous. Riotous Beating powered up with DCE is insane. Its GX attack didn't really see that much play, but it didn't have to be honest. It could generally take a hit through most of Sun and Moon's block as well, which is very, very strong. Hooper goes away. We do still have a couple of ways of safeguarding, but this is the easiest one, and so Stall decks have a little bit less power with that now. There's a Keldeo that comes out in Unified Minds which has this effect, but it's a GX, so yeah. Other than that, Fairy Ninetales is the only one we have, because the Water one also rotates. We'll get to that later. Shining Volcanion is noteworthy because Door Pump is just a good attack in general, and Quagnag decks did play this quite well. Not every Quagnag deck played this, but the ones I was using definitely did, and it was very nice to be able to chip away at stuff like on the bench as well. Just weaken things down so you don't have to hit them quite as hard with the, or have as many energy on like a Magikarp Wailord or something. Bike Vault goes away, Strong Charge is incredibly good, such a nice thing to have, especially with the Charger bug that's now available, so you can actually play this deck and have bonus acceleration with the stage 1. Shame to see this go, to be honest. Huge part of Rayquaza decks in this era, and also the previously Tapu Bulu decks. Very, very strong. Lycanroc GX goes, Pepper was using this a ton as the main one, but Bloodthirsty Eye is obviously very powerful. Gusting effects are almost always incredibly strong. They don't always consistently see play as you go forward, but this one definitely did, because fighting is a good type to have, who would have guessed. Oranguru is in almost all the decks that are like super good. There are quite a few that don't play it anymore, but like Gramble obviously is a huge one that was just made because of this card, and just being able to draw until you have 3. We see it nowadays on Mew EX, and that's a 2-prizer, which low HP. Shows how good this effect is on a basic. Tapu Koko going, a lot of our spread tools in general are disappearing here, and a lot of the ones we have left aren't meta viable because their energy gets deleted. So, yeah, 20 to everything on a 0 retreat guy for a double colorless, obviously very powerful. It's been incredible for us this entire time, so a bit of a shame to see that go. The GX was played quite a lot in Pikarom decks as a one-off in order to shift excess energy from your 6 energy Pikachu and Zekrom once you've done Tag Bolt, to make sure that you don't lose all of your stuff via that. And yeah, it's pretty good. Tapu Thunder was excellent against the Reshizard decks as well, because you could hit them extremely hard for how much energy they put on the board. Basically prevented them from ever having more than 4 energy in play. Otherwise you just go Electro Power, Tapu Thunder, one-shot them. So yeah. I am really mad that we lose the Psychic Lele here, because we didn't even get this card until this year. This is one of the quickest rotation cycle things we've ever seen for it, but we were supposed to get this card a year earlier than we did. It's annoying because it's the Psychic type one. We do have the Fairy one still in format, but yeah, spoilers, you can see on the bottom, we lose counter energy as well, so we don't have access to the ease of use here. We have to use a Fairy energy specifically with it, which is really dumb, and also Mysterious Treasure can search this one out, which we can't do otherwise. Might not be as huge of a problem because we don't have as many spread attacks as we do now, but we also don't have as many gusting options as we used to, so it would be nice to be able to manipulate the damage where we need it to be. So yeah, I hate that this card rotates. There's no reason for it to, but hey, such is life. Tapu Lele GX also gets rotated here. We no longer have the Luminion effect that we have in current standard, so being able to search a supporter is obviously very, very strong. We do lose double colorless, so maybe this wouldn't have been quite as insane, except for the fact of it's psychic, so Mysterious Treasure would be really good for it, so it would have seen a ton of play. Yeah, too bad. Ultra Beasts going away include Buzzwole and Kartana. Buzzwole was super, super powerful for a long time. I mean, fighting is always a good weakness to hit. I think the only reason it's tapered off is because of the fact that it gives up 2 prizes, and 190 is a fair bit easier to hit now than it used to be, so it does kind of get murked a little bit, but being able to one-shot Pikarom is obviously going to be very good in its favor, so yeah. Kartana, on the other hand, is actually getting a sort of replacement with a Giratina. This one lets you discard a special energy from anywhere on the opponent's board, rather than only the active, which the Giratina is going to do, but at least we still have that option. Meanwhile, Blade GX could just win games if you use it at the right time. So yeah, this one Worlds in 2018, 2019, sort of bit like that, that transition period. So yeah. Then we have Necrozma GX going. Some Malamar decks did focus around this. It used to be better when like there was more emphasis on some of the color stuff. I think when Drampa was available, but it did see a lot of play because it could do a bunch of damage with Prismatic Burst in the Malamar deck and not have to focus on having Metal Energy as well. That stipulation kind of went away in Team Up, where Viridian Forest lets you search the Metal Energy now, so Ultra Necrozma ends up outclassing this, but Prismatic Burst is still really strong, and Black Ray was particularly good when Shaman and stuff was still available, so yeah, it was a strong card at the time. Then we have Marshadow, Let Loose, and also the GX is going as well. GX is relevant because of the fighting type, obviously. We are getting Mewtwo and Mew in Unified Minds, which does a similar but stronger version of this, more or less. But the fighting type is really good here, and sometimes that matters, like in Pikarom matchups. Whereas the regular Marshadow is an absolute butt, and I am not sad to see this go in the slightest. Let Loose is kind of gross. Being able to use this with Mysterious Treasure, also kind of gross. And some games just don't get to start because this guy shuffles the opponent to 4 and they dead draw. So it's rude. Moving on to the trainer cards here. Aqua Patch is always a good card to have around, right? We see even Dart Patch at the moment in Standard. It's not getting used that much, but this kind of energy acceleration is always crazy to have, and water types are really just getting neutered up. They weren't even that strong in most of Sun and Moon, to be honest, but water types are really getting heavily shafted in this this rotation. This forces Quagsire and Naganadel decks to play a lot more Naganadel in order to get their energy out now, so they become less consistent, which is a shame. Counter Catcher, a bit of a controversial one, this one actually. For the most part, this card is really good until you realize that control decks abuse the heck out of it, and then it becomes a lot less palatable for me at least. You know, if it's used for its intended purpose, it's great, but yeah, it's not really possible to always do that, which is a shame. Anyway, being behind on prizes, having these sort of catch-up mechanics is not a bad thing for the game. Just, this one's a bit polarizing. I don't know. It's neat though, and it's in current standard. It's pretty cool, so we'll have it for a while there. Energy Lotto is a bit of a weird one. You don't often see this, and I think this is another one that's in current standard as well, if I remember rightly. Yeah, this was used in Persimmon decks quite a lot, and let you get a ton of DCEs and counter energies and stuff like that out, so it was cool. We're losing some of the good ones that way though, so we probably wouldn't see it too much anymore, but still, nice to have around. Enhanced Hammer's a weird one to go. We don't see anything like this again until we get to Fan of Waves in, what, Battle Styles, or in that general era? Enhanced Hammer is functionally replaceable by Faber, but it means you need to use the supporter card to get the special energy off. Thankfully, this isn't a super heavy format for special energy, and the one that we still have that's really good tapers off at the end of the turn, so we don't need this kind of effect as much. Escape Rope, you wouldn't think this is the kind of card that rotates, but yeah, Escape Rope is not in the format at the moment once this rotation hits, which is irritating because this is not a gust option, but it is definitely a very good switch sort of thing to have around. So yeah, too bad. Field Blower goes away. Well, Field Blower is probably a little too strong. They did reprint Tool Scrapper instead of this in Gen 8, and I think that was the right play. But yeah, I mean, stadiums are really, really powerful at the moment. They had to make the Prism Star stadiums immune to this kind of effect just because they printed this card. Probably shows it's a bit of a mistake. But yeah, tool removal is quite a bit more difficult. Now, again, we have Faber, so it's not as if we have 0 tool removal. But also, if you have a look down here, a lot of really good tools actually rotate too, so we probably don't even need this. And as for the stadiums, every deck is playing a lot of them anyway, so there's quite a few Stadium Wars that are fine at that point, so yeah. Max Potion, this is the final time this gets printed, and is probably not coming back. It might come back as an A-Spec actually, because there are going to be a bunch of those in Gen 9, but so far, yeah, nothing really tops this. I think Cheryl is the closest we have, right, where it is basically a supporter version of, it's the old Pokemon Center really, but it's the full heal thing. We don't have any way of fully healing these tag teams anymore, and thank goodness for that, because that's the sort of direction we're going with the next stuff too, and we don't want that to be on an item. Multi-switch is a pretty interesting one. This is mostly used in decks that want to move special energy around, which is notoriously difficult to do because Energy Switch doesn't let you do that. But yeah, we're losing the best special energy, so who really cares, I guess, at this point. But it has been used in the past in stuff like Persimmon, so yeah, worth noting. Many consistency cards go away here, but the big ones from Sun and Moon are Nest Ball, which we have in current standard, Timer Ball, which we will get a replacement for in Sword and Shield, but gotta wait for that. We'll get Evolution Incense at that point. And Ultra Ball, which again doesn't get reprinted until late Gen 8. We have Pokemon Communication, we have Netball, I think we have Friend Ball if we really wanted to go down that route, but the format tends to be too diverse for that. And that's about it. Actually, we get Cherish Ball in Unified Minds, but that's only for GXs. So guess which way the format's going to go? Into the multi-prizes. Yeah. This is effectively a soft rotation for Apricorn Maker as well, because even Great Ball rotates temporarily. So yeah, we lose basically every target that Apricorn Maker would get. So unfortunately, rest in peace that card as well. Rescue Stretcher rotates, which means we now have to rely on Brock's Grit in order to recover Pokemon. Little bit of an awkward thing. We do still have energy recovery, but obviously that's a different topic entirely. I like this card. It's a shame that we don't still have it, but it is probably too versatile. Maybe if we just lose the whole put the Pokemon back into the hand thing, we could have it. I don't know. Supporters! Acerola goes. Once again, huge healing. Probably for the best with tag teams being, you know, the dominant force going forward. Probably for the best we can't just heal them immediately. Gladion goes away, so we don't really have any prize manipulation, unless we're playing Ultra Beast, because Beast Ball technically still stays in format, so we might be able to do some stuff with that. But yeah, regular stuff, control decks do get a tiny bit of damage because of this, but yeah, they don't care that much really. Guzma's the huge one that rotates, because, I mean, again, Gusting, not really a good option. Custom Catch is the only one that we really have, and a lot of decks can't find that on demand. So, yeah, this is just a ridiculous card though. The fact that they're printing this as an A spec in the first, like, main set in Gen 9 for it, what were they thinking was probably the main thing. They're probably thinking, yeah, let's sell packs. But, yeah, no, Guzma, Gusting, and switching is crazy strong. Kiawe isn't really seeing that much play in the main successful Reshizard decks, but the ability-based ones that use Jirachi and stuff like that will use this to more easily get like a huge turn 1 going for them. And it's a crazy card, right? Search your deck for 4 energy and attach them to one of your Pokemon. Unbelievably powerful. We do have Welder, of course, which is the predominant way of doing this stuff now, but still, just being able to end your first turn with this would have been great. 4 Welder, 4 Kiawe, there you go. That would have been the deck. Mallow goes away. We actually just are getting this as a future supporter in the next main set for the current standard at the time of printing, which is cool. But unfortunately, our access to this goes away. It's probably not even that good without Zoroark, to be honest, and we are losing some of our main draw engine type stuff that would help with this. But a Search 2 and top deck them is always at least an interesting effect to have, so too bad. Control decks take a very slight hit with Plumeria going here as well, but the thing is they'll tend to transition more towards like Crushing Hammer for energy denial and hand control with the other stuff, like make sure that your hand doesn't have cards in it and make sure your top deck is bad. So control decks don't really need this at this point, but yeah, it has been the staple of like Stally type stuff in the current format, which we still refuse to show because we just don't like them. Professor Kukui is a weird one to rotate, because usually the Professor is there for the entire block, but no, this one never got a reprint outside of Sun and Moon base. Very strange. Extra 20 damage did actually matter sometimes, even as late in as Reshizard decks played this, and yeah, draw 2, get 20 extra damage, good effects. Too bad it's going. Sophocles, I don't like this card, but it's a draw option, so we're going to note it anyway. Discard 2 first means that you can't play this on an empty hand, which is really annoying, unlike TV Reporter, which stays in format. Draw 4 is a good effect, but we've got better ways of drawing 4 when this next set comes out. And another one for the control decks, Team Skullgrunt. If you start refusing to put your energy into play because of the threat of it getting discarded, then they'll use this and get them out of the hand that way instead. Thankfully, we don't have to worry too much about that anymore. There's a few stadiums that rotate here. Aether Paradise Conservation is one that is just like okay, but does sometimes change the math here. Basic grass and lightning take 30 less damage, means that Pikarom has effectively got 270 HP. Sometimes comes up, but usually gets bounced before it's effective. Altar of the Moon was pretty good. Psychic types do kind of still want this, but they just don't have access to it anymore, obviously. The Dark types get Dark City in Unified Minds, so they get a basic zero retreat thing for stuff here, so they don't need this as much, but yeah, retreat cost aid's always good. Fairy Garden was good for as long as it was printed, so there you go. Brooklet Hill, another consistency hit here. This was one of the few things that made water decks actually playable, and unfortunately it goes away. So yeah, fighting types as well, obviously they like this surge too, so rip. Unless you're Ultra Beast, which was the main fighting deck, so they could just play Ultra Space. Devoured Field was mostly a Zoroark thing by the end of stuff here, but doing 10 extra damage with your Dark and Dragon Pokemon is a good effect. This let Zoroark hit the one-shots on most single prize cards that were being played, so yeah. Mount Kyler makes your basic Pokemon pay more to retreat, which mostly just got bounced before it did anything, but it was still very occasionally seen in a couple of particular decks. And then Potown, I think until Gatejaw Bog, I believe this is the last time we get a damaging effect for playing Pokemon down. It wasn't played too often, but evolving was really good for most of Sun and Moon, and this card was a punish for it, so yeah. Tool cards, Bodybuilding Dumbbells. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you'd see it played. It's, again, possible to just Field Blower this away, but it changed the math in a lot of decks, and when Field Blower stopped seeing quite as much play, 40 extra HP is big. It means that sometimes you just don't get one shot when you should, as like a Grand Ball. Yeah, 160 damage is a good number to hit, and Grand Ball gets above that, just as one example. Also works on the GXs and stuff, so 250 HP Zoroark, let's go. Choice Band goes, another huge damage mod here. This makes it a lot harder to one-shot things at this point, especially tag teams. Reshizard in particular really hates this going away, because that 260 HP threshold was what was keeping Gardevoir and Sylveon away from meta play. And, well, now it doesn't have to worry about that, I suppose, so there you go. Experience Share is a weird one to go away. It's like Battle Styles is when this comes back, so we don't even get it until 2021 season, which is really weird. But yeah, sometimes you would see it played. Like, just being able to preserve energy in play is never really a bad thing, especially in a deck like Quagsire and Aganadel, which you'd be able to shift stuff around and just get it back to the active with Quagsire. Which, speaking of, Wishful Baton down here also rotates. This is huge for a couple of decks, to be honest. Yeah, that funny Blissey deck that Sai played obviously uses this quite a bit, which is amusing. But also Baby Blacephalon and, yeah, Quagsire and Aganadel did use it too, to be able to keep more energy in play. So, yeah, we lose a lot of our, like, energy consistency, I guess, that way. Or, you know, repeatability, I should say. Other stuff that we lose, I'll go over the memories here first, like fighting and psychic memories for Silvally go away, so we can still turn it into like a water or a lightning type, etc. But these were two of the biggest ones. Psychic less so as the format went on, because a lot of the psychic stuff is now Dark Week as opposed to Psychic Week. But this would have been huge with Mewtwo and Mew just coming out, so yeah, bit of a shame there. And yeah, of course fighting is really good, because now we can't one-shot the Pikarom. So Silvally, not super useful at the moment. Poison Barb was very occasionally seen. This card basically didn't see play, but if it did, it was with the Seviper we can go over down the bottom. And unfortunately, no more Auto Poison. I mean, I guess it's fine, because this card's bad, but whatever. Weakness Policy also goes, but we do get a special energy very soon that will negate weakness instead. I think that's in Unified Minds, actually. Literally Weakness Guard energy. So that's probably better than playing the tool. Still a bit of a shame to see this sort of thing go. And then finally, the 2 energy. Double Color, surprisingly. I thought this stayed in format for one more season. But nope, it was last printed in Shining Legends, so it goes away, which is weird. And Counter Energy was exceptional. This will probably color quite a few of the things that we see down the bottom, but any of the 2 energy basics that do like 100 to 120 sort of damage, any of those that still stay in the format effectively rotate as well, because there's no reason to play them if you can't play this. Being able to be a double rainbow on your non-GX Pokemon, super crazy, to be honest. It was really, really powerful, and a lot of decks were enabled solely because this existed. Persimmon is a really good example. It was made so much better when this came out. So yeah, bit of a shame to see that go. This is the kind of card that I think really is good to stay in the format for the most part. This is a lot less controversial than sort of catcher type effects to play with. And then I know we are quite far into this, but there are a lot of cards down here that are worth noting, so let's try and rapid fire through most of them. Venusaur was played with the Shining Genesect down here in order to get a ton of energy effectively into play. The Venusaur doubled your energy attachments if they were basic grasses, and the Genesect itself actually did more damage based on the energy that it had. It could also energy switch to itself as well, so pretty good effect there. Too bad that is that kind of effect's going away. Charizard GX is a bit more speculative, but this would have actually been very good with the Mewtwo and Mew decks because it can copy the Raging Out GX attack, which mills the top 10 cards of the opponent's deck. If we still had this in format for Unified Minds, this would almost definitely have been in that deck. Also because it can do 300 damage for 5 energy, which sounds like a lot, but with Welder, that's 2 turns of attaching basically, and 300 damage KOs everything in the format, even the tag teams. So this would have been extremely good if we actually still had that. The Kakuna is a bit more speculative because we never really got a super good Beedrill that would work with this, but we do have that one that KOs both actives if it has a damage counter on it. So yeah, but I mean, we saw how good this was with Water Duplicates. We see in the future how good this is with Mirage Step from Curlier. So anytime that you see this like cheat out a bunch of stage 1s, you've got to take a look at it seriously. Raichu GX rotates, so we don't have any targets for the Snuggly Generator deck until Cosmic Eclipse, but this one didn't have Nuzzle, so it was never that good anyway, to be honest. The only time this was remotely playable was after Pikarom came out, and why would you play this when Pikarom exists? The Water-type Alolan Ninetales, both of them rotate here. The Luminous Barrier can be replicated by the Fairy-type one, but this is a Water-type that was actually more relevant as far as weaknesses go. And Ice Blade and Ice Path were both incredibly good attacks. This was played with Decidueye most commonly, but quite a few decks could take advantage of this. If you were playing Vulpix anyway, you'd often want this in the deck too. 210 used to be really hard to hit in one shot, right? And if you didn't one-shot it, it would Ice Path you for a DCE and get you that way. Vileplume goes away. This, funnily enough, was used in Pheromosa Boswell decks as a counter to Reshizard, because the Reshizard deck played only basic Pokemon. If this was active, your opponent's basics can't even attack. So, yeah, pretty gross. We have Mew now to prevent bench damage, but Machoke was the way that we used to do that, and it also prevents the opponent from putting damage counters down on your bench as well with abilities and attacks. I believe there's a Rabsca that's going to be coming out soon that does this too, but it only has 70 HP, so it's terrible. I am putting Kingdra here because I liked it in the deck I played it in some lot, in Lost Thunder format. It's fine, like, it reads really well, it just never really had its time to shine until Lost Thunder, but it was incredibly good in the games that I played it in, with the Ninetales being able to evolve this up quite well, and doing Maelstrom GX with the Kingdra GX in order to do good stuff that way. I liked it. Strong. I mean, it's got Night Spear for 1 energy. That's got to be worth something, right? Tauros GX was an absolute disaster of a Pokemon in Sun and Moon base set. It was pretty good until Burning Shadows, so like the first couple of sets it was very, very good in, and this made it really difficult to like play around. 180 HP was surprisingly bulky in Sun and Moon base, still very difficult to one-shot that, and if you didn't one-shot it, Rage would one-shot you back. Mad Bull would definitely one-shot you back, so yeah, it made it very difficult to play around the stuff, and it was super annoying, to be honest. Also, it one-shot like every basic that was evolving via Horn Attack. Magikarp with Submerge is a thing. There is still a Gyarados in format that would have benefited from this. It's a fun meme deck, but yeah, too bad. The actual Gyarados that sort of play with it is also rotating. This was from Crimson Invasion, no, Burning Shadows actually. Yeah, this sort of playing Zoroark decks actually. We can't really work out why, because it didn't really play very well, but I think it was because of the fact of like Reshizard. But it was played before that too, so I don't really know. Venting Anger is neat at the very least. Double Colorless Energy, 50 damage for each Magikarp in your discard. If you evolve this from the Ditto, then you can have 4 in the discard and do 200 from 1 DC. That's pretty cool, especially with how much HP Gyarados has. But nah, we couldn't make it work very well, so oh well. Espeon GX, very, very strong for the first like 3 sets basically. I think even with the advent of Burning Shadows, this was still played a bit, but yeah, Espeon Garb, Espeon Drampa, that sort of thing was very, very good in the Sun and Moon early days. Psychic was just strong at the time, Divide GX was really good at the time, DCE compatible obviously, Energy Evolve, Psybeam turn 1 was really good. Yeah, this still did well even against Gardevoir decks, so nice. Umbreon was more of a first set Andy than it was any further than that, but Strafe was still a good attack, Shadow Bullet was Night Spear but for a cheaper cost, it had Energy Evolution on its side, and Dark Hole was gross. There were some games that were just won because you discarded 2 DCs or something, so yeah. Sylveon, I played this with Gardevoir once and that's where I liked it, but Sylveon was most known for its control deck because Magical Ribbon was Steven's advice before that existed. Being able to Energy Evolve into this and then go search your deck for 3 cards immediately was really good. It eventually ended up winning via that, but Plea GX was also worth noting because a lot of decks in Sun and Moon were evolution based, and if you put their evolutions, especially red candied ones, back into the hand, they might not be able to play them again, so yeah. Snorlax was the first GX to ever come out. I'm only noting this really because Pepper tried it with the Yanmega, since there was no reason for Yanmega to play energy. You could just pile it all on the Snorlax, and Pulverizing Pancake is a very fun attack to call. It is its actual Z move as well for Snoralium Z, so neat. This Dragonair, I mean, there are a couple of Dragonites that are actually still okay, and Dragon's Wish can let you attach any amount of energy you want from, in your next turn, so that's kind of neat. The Dragonites in question do have an energy accelerant now though, so not super great, but Sai played this a ton with like Darkrai and stuff, so there you go. Mewtwo, we never really played this because we didn't play that much Malamar, but early versions of Malamar didn't actually have as many single prize attackers to like choose from as they do now, and this one prevented Tapu Koko from hitting your bench whilst it was active, so it was genuinely pretty solid. Could also one-shot Necrozma GX, which was the big 2 prize attacker they were using, so yeah, it's good. Or it could one-shot the Mewtwo GX, which was the other 2 prize attacker they were using. This gets eclipsed pretty quickly, to be honest, in terms of how good it is in the decks for Malamar, but it was played at the time. Psystrike's a good GX attack, so there you go. Honchkrow, I'm not that sad to see this go because most of our spread options go as well, but this was really fun for like the Weavile decks, for Tapu Koko stuff, for Weezing as well actually. It did matter that I had access to this as well for the end of that game, so yeah, being able to do more damage to every damage counter you've managed to accrue on the opponent's side really helps. Shrine of Punishment's really good with this as well, so yeah. Speaking of the Weavile, this was the one that was used with 60 damage to each Pokemon in play that has an ability. Used to be able to block the self-damage with this via the Mr. Mime bench barrier, but Mew does not block it, so Mew still gets one-shot by this. Too bad. This Miltank wasn't amazing, but it did see some play in ability-based Reshizard decks. I don't think we're going to actually show that, but it's always a possibility. If it's active, then you attach an energy from the hand to one of your Pokemon, heal 90 from that Pokemon. This also counts with Welder as well. That was the main reason it would see play. So yeah, being able to heal up your Reshizard by like 180 in a turn by doing Welder plus manual attach is pretty good. Ho-Oh was a huge user of Kiawe when it first came out in Burning Shadows, was a very silly deck with this and the Turtonator that we'll see down the bottom here. and Salazzle that we can go into as well. These formed the core where it's like Salazzle was the late game because you did a bunch of damage for each prize you've already taken, so that's 200 damage on 4 prizes. The Turtonator could recover energy from the discard and also do a decent amount of damage with Choice Band as well, one-shot the stuff itself. And the Ho-Oh was 180 damage, took 210 with a Choice Band, one-shots the stage 1 2 prizes as well, which was very strong. Eternal Flame, in theory, could have been really good, but never really saw its time to shine, to be honest. Speaking of not seeing time to shine, Shining Celebi just didn't have any targets in the format. Being able to use Prevo attacks is always a fun thing to have around, but most of the time it doesn't matter because the Prevo attacks all suck. We had a couple of options that we could have used with this. Disconnect on Luxio was the main one, and there's also wait, no, that's in current standard. I think there was a Charmander that was the other one to consider that has a rage style attack, but I think it was on a coin flip, so it's not even that good. Too bad. Survivor mentioned this with a Poison Barb. It does more damage if you have poisoned the opponent. So yeah, it doesn't actually self-damage you, which is pretty cool. So yeah, poison-based decks with stuff like Salazzle down the bottom over here, which you can auto-poison, or using the Poison Barb, these will grant you bonus damage. So pretty neat. Metagross GX was awesome for a long time, actually. I think it only really fell off probably 4 or 5 sets after it came out. This was in Guardians Rising. It was kind of insane. Being able to accelerate a bunch of energy for, you know, on the discard aspect of it was great, right? Metal Energy or Psychic, depending on what you wanted to do, so you could text some Psychic Energy in for your, like, Tapu Cures and stuff like that. And it was a max potion deck, right? It only had a free energy retreat, so you could do 150. Couldn't attack with that next turn, but that's fine because you just paid free energy to retreat to a fresh Metagross, accelerate those energy back with the GXs you had, max potion the one on the bench, you're fine. It's great. Also, was the first user of this search your deck for up to 5 cards thing. We're gonna probably see that on Whimsicott GX, actually, coming up, so pretty cool. The Registeel was used in exactly one major format, which was the Silvally Metal Ultra Beast deck when Crimson Invasion first came out, but it's an energy accelerant from the discard. It's always going to be pretty useful. Can actually accelerate other types than just metal if you do play other ones, so that's kind of neat. Latios was really solid for just being able to do a little bit more targeted damage than what the Tapu Koko could do. It also hit 30 on a Psychic type, so it could one-shot NK when that came out as well, so it's pretty good. Rayquaza never really saw its time to shine, but that's mostly because it needed double colorless to do its thing. Attaching 2 basic energy from your discard to one of your benched is objectively busted for 1 energy attach of your own, but the problem was that you needed to play DCE and put energy in the discard, and that was just a bit too difficult most of the time. If it had more than 60 HP, this Spiritomb would have been an absolute menace. We see this in current standard with Snorlax control. Being able to stop the opponent from retreating has always been a crazy good effect, and this one, no exception. This would have been insane. The Regigigas was exclusively a stall card, but it's 180 HP on a single Prizes, so that alone was good enough to make it played. So yeah. Manaphy didn't see a ton of play because water decks in general weren't amazing, but heal 20 from one of your Pokemon with a water energy attached to it could come up sometimes. I believe there probably were decks that we could have built with this, just wasn't really necessary for what we wanted to do. Darkrai GX, Restoration is good. Dark Box is about to be a thing with Weavile coming out in Unified Minds, so we'll be able to transfer energy around with this, and just being able to go, I'm going to take this from the discard, get a Darkness Energy from said discard, and shift it about. That would be pretty strong. Also, Dead End GX was fun, like if you could ever pull it off. There's a couple of ways to auto-inflict special conditions in the middle of the turn, so you could just get the KO with that. It's kind of neat. Shaman was really good in formats where you needed a Lycanroc counter and you had counter energy available, so Passimian type stuff was, I think, the first place I used this, but this is one of several cards. Like there's the Keldeo was another one if you needed water based stuff for it. I think most of them are technically still in format, so they're not really here. But yeah, you would use these because Pessimian also used counter energy as part of its deck profile, and that lets you then hit for specific weaknesses to one-shot problem matchup GXs. And yeah, it's pretty strong at doing that. So 120 damage if one of your guys got KO'd is good. Shining Arceus was used one time in the Malamar stuff. I know Sai tried this later on as well, but wasn't particularly good. It got power crept out. But, I mean, if it's active, this was one of the few ways we had of protecting our bench for a while, and it focuses on bench damage itself. With double colorless in the format and Malamar to cycle energy to it as well, Ultimate Arrow was very playable, and a good part of a spread deck. Victini goes away the last time that we see Victory Star on a Pokemon. We have, I believe, a trainer stadium card that does this in the future, but yeah, the last time we actually get to see it as a bench sitter. Being able to reflip was really good for the Blissey deck, and I think there's a couple other decks that are coming out that could have taken advantage of this. Too bad, not available anymore. Reshiram and Zekrom, they very occasionally saw play. I think Zekrom much less so, but like these are effectively reprints of their black and white based stuff. And I know Reshiram did see some play as a single prizer in the Reshizard decks when it came out. I have seen it in lists, so we'll note it here anyway. Outrage, it's still a good attack, right? If you don't get one shot, 130 HP is a bit frail for that nowadays, but, you know, if you don't get killed in one hit, you can still do decent damage with it. I think the Zekrom might have had more potential in the Magnezone decks, but the problem is, it's a Magnezone deck, right? And that's kind of hard to play at this point. It's difficult to justify that sort of stage 2 thing. Gourgeist I'm noting because I played it with the Rotom forms. The Rotoms themselves don't rotate, but this was in Crimson Invasion, so unfortunately this does. And Pumpkin Bomb was cool. Let you discard a bunch of tools that you had in play, do in theory up to about 250 damage if you discarded 6 tools, technically 280 if it was against a GX and Choice Band was active, so that's cool, you get one-shots and stuff there. And the Rotoms got to attack for 0 if you have 9 or more tools in your discard. So yeah, there's also a Ninetales coming out in Cosmic Eclipse that does damage for every tool that's in your discard, so this could have benefited there as well. Noivern GX never really had its format to shine, but it would have been a lot more playable if it was still in format at Unified Minds. The one time we get a Dragon-type Noibat is in the next set after this rotates. I'm so annoyed with that, because this I would have actually tried it if the Dragon-type Noibat was in this set, because we could have done some really good stuff with that, but nah, it's not there. Item Lock is probably for the best that it's not like super available. This thing's just annoying in general though, like Item Lock is there, Special Energy Lock is there if you want to do a bit more damage, and 50 to each of the opponent's Pokemon is not a bad GX attack, so yeah, probably for the best. This Yveltal saw very scant play in a couple of decks, mostly the Yveltal Break when that was a thing. It's expensive to Oblivion Wing with this, but it does give you more damage output than the old one used to have, so fine, I guess. This was underwhelming when we saw it though, and 120 HP really hurt it, but it was played by Pepper, so we'll note it anyway. Diancie was played in a lot of the initial Gardevoir decks because it was able to evolve your Ralts into a Curlier turn 1 if you go in second, and that lets you get to Gardevoirs much more easily, which is good. The reason this didn't see a lot of play though is because it took a Fairy Energy specifically, so you could only play it in Gardevoir, which was a real shame. If this was a colorless like the old Make-A-Wish Jirachi or the Spiritomb used to be, then we would have seen this played a fair bit more, I think. Decidueye, one of my favourite early decks in this era. I played so much of this, it was so fun. This is my type of ability to use. Once per turn, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Absolutely insane. Love this kind of thing. Hollow Hunt was also really, really good as an early GX attack. Being able to put any cards from your discard back into hand, recover special energy, don't mind if I do. Gumshoes was a control card that never really saw a ton of play, but it did exist here and there. If you saw what the opponent had in their hand, then you could know when it was time to play Team Skullgrunt, or you knew that you had to shuffle them into the deck with a Judge or an Ace Trainer or something like that, or an N, you know. So, yeah, other than that, not too dangerous. I mean, Gumshoe's Chance GX could actually be pretty good in the right matchup too, but didn't see much play for that. Vikavolt GX, I'm noting this mostly because of the compatibility with the Charger bug that we just got. It's not the better version of that deck, unfortunately, so we're not really going to get to see that, but it's cool. Being able to get energy back, any energy back, including double colors from the discard, is fine. It future-proofed itself a little bit by being triple acceleration compatible. That's neat. Damage output's a little low, but we have Electro Power now, so we could easily take advantage of that. And Gigatron is neat. 60 to each of the opponent's bench is quite strong. Oricorio, mostly this one is the one that's worth noting because this one did actually see a little bit of play. Being able to search a deck for 2 energy was quite good, basic energy specifically, but still not too bad in the Cofagrigus deck actually, because you could then discard it with the Cofagrigus to do more damage. So that was the main place it saw play. This Oricorio was better in Expanded because we had Night March was the thing it countered, but even in Standard, very occasionally you could see this played as a tech card because some decks, especially Vespiquen, I think was still available when this first came out, and it was like, that deck actually wants a ton of stuff in its discard, so yeah. Mabombi didn't really see a lot of play because the Cutie Flies are 30 HP, but this is the more stable version of the Oricorio where it just lets you do energy search per turn, which is kind of neat. Viridian Forest obviously outdoes that now. I like this Lycanroc. I played this quite a lot because of the compatibility with Choice Band. This hit fighting weak stuff like Dramper for 180 damage with a Choice Band, and that was really good. If it's a basic that you're dealing against, 60 for 1 also one-shots a lot of evolving stuff, which is pretty good. So I got a lot of use out of this when I played Lycanroc decks. Buff it up with Diancie as well, and you can start dealing with the 190 stuff that's weak as well, so even Zera Aura wouldn't survive, so that's pretty cool. This Lycanroc didn't see a lot of play, but it's a promo one. Might as well note that only the Dusk Lycanroc is still in format at this point, but this one auto discarded energy, so there was in Sun and Moon base set the potential to play like this in a denial type deck with Team Flare Grunts and stuff like that. Wishiwashi GX there is actually a Wishiwashi coming out in Cosmic Eclipse, I believe, which lets your Wishiwashi GX have more HP and do more damage, so I guess that's a thing, but it was played in stall decks sometimes because it was just a really big basic, right? It gave up 2 prizes, but it was 210 HP, and its weakness wasn't very common, so yeah, that's pretty much it. This Araquanid rotates. We have the grass version of this, which is probably better overall, but being immune to fire type stuff, there's a few cards that have had that in this block actually. Bronzong is the main one that we would see later, but yeah, Araquanid could also be that way. Lurantis and Lurantis GX both rotate here. These were best played by Psy actually, but Lurantis GX read really well. It just didn't keep up as well with the Espeon, Tauros, Umbreon type stuff, unfortunately. But being able to accelerate energy from your discard pile in any way you like is super, super good. We had Forest Giant Plants when this came out too, so it was easily able to evolve turn 1. And Promo Lurantis, which didn't come out at the same time, that was the main reason it had trouble, is able to buff that damage to 60 or even 80 depending on how many you get in play. And this also buffed Tapu Bulu, which we can talk about as well. This is how it was played with Psy. That was super, super good. Because the Tapu Bulu could then do up to about 250 damage with 2 Lurantis in play. And that one-shot my Solgaleo, which was crazy. So yeah, Bulu itself was really good in general because it was fantastic with Vikavolt too, being able to accelerate a bunch of energy. It was effectively like Landorus, but without a weakness. Landorus EX, that is. Doesn't have the bench damage, but it has more outright damage with Nature's Judgment. And if you didn't one-shot it, then I think at the time we had a tool that gave you like, yeah, we had Fighting Fury Belt, so we could get it to 220 HP. If you didn't one-shot it, you could get full healed against with Tapu Wilderness. So, really good. Shinotic and its fairy equivalent that we have now never really had a time to shine, funnily enough. I don't really know exactly why this kind of card doesn't see that much play in the end. It's just maybe like grass type is obviously kind of annoying to play most of the time because they just aren't as good. But being able to search your deck for any grass Pokemon is really nice. I guess it's this kind of effect on a stage 1 is probably just too awkward to play. It's too clunky, right? But even in Heart Gold Soul Silver with the Sunflora, that was the worst part of the Jumpluff deck, and it just got cut. So yeah, kind of weird. Golisopod in general goes away, but there is a Water-type one coming out soon that could have benefited from this Wimpod. So yeah, having no retreat on your first turn is really nice. It used to be Heavy Ball searchable as well when that was still in format, so that was pretty good. This Golisopod didn't see a ton of play, but it was effectively a 160 HP stage 1 that gave up 1 prize. That was pretty good. And if it was against GXs with a choice band, it could do up to 180, so nice. And obviously Golisopod GX was absolutely insane. 120 damage for 1 energy if it became active this turn. Oh, that works with Guzma and just makes things really, really powerful. So yeah, 120 was still 2-shot numbers on everything. And when you're trading this efficiently, you can Acerola, you can Max Potion, it's really good. Drampa also saw a ton of play. This was in a lot of regional winning and IC winning decks, I believe, as well. Righteous Edge, super good for the time because Special Energy was all over the place at the start of Gen 7. Berserk was really easy to fuel because just put a Rainbow Energy on your bench and you get that even if the opponent doesn't do anything. And Big Wheel GX just let you get into the game. Shuffle Draw 10 demanded an N or the opponent was losing the game basically. For 1 energy on a basic, this was just so strong. Yeah, super good card. Only held back by 180 HP and a fighting weakness, which sometimes got it into trouble. Demise goes away. We don't tend to see too much of this, but it did see play in some of the Metagross decks, and I think even a couple of Solgaleo decks played this. Being able to do 10 more damage with your Metal Pokemon did actually come up sometimes. Damage mods are always worth looking into, so shame that we lose that. Tapu Fini is not particularly good, but I did try it in one of the Greninja decks because I wanted Tapu Storm as a GX attack. I don't think I ever used it in the end, but in theory it's pretty good. Shuffle the opponent's active back into the deck is kind of neat. And then a couple of Ultra Beasts down here as well. Nihilego GX goes away. If you bench this, then you confuse and poison both actives. Didn't see a lot of play, but it did see play sometimes if you needed that sort of status condition effect to come up. Better when Chaos Tower was legal, because you could make yourself immune to those 2 conditions. That was neat. And then Guzzlord, we unfortunately didn't get to see this actually do its Exodia thing, but I did get the setup for it, where Glutton GX would have taken the remaining prizes that I needed to win the game. Against a Persimmon deck of all things. That was really weird, but unfortunately, yeah, just bricks happened and we couldn't see it, but it's funny. We do get a better version of this as a single prizer in Cosmic Eclipse, where it does 120 damage for 4 and gives 1 more prize instead when you take a KO. Doesn't have to be any GX attack on that, obviously, so it's pretty good. Finally, a couple of items that are maybe worth noting. Damage Mover was used in the Spiritomb and Stunfisk deck, where we could shift damage away from the Gathering Spiritombs, put it onto something that can't damage itself, and then we get to do more damage with the Stunfisk, because it does up to 180 if everything's damaged. It's pretty good. Repel is only really noteworthy because it really is like every switch the opponent out effect. It just doesn't exist anymore. We have exactly 2, which is Custom Catcher and Ability Zard can play the Ninetales that discards 2 fire and gusts the opponent. That is it. That is all that we have. So yeah, force the opponent to switch, not a thing. A couple of Rotom Dexes are here as well. We could potentially manipulate our prizes just a little bit with this one if we see, when we do a deck check, if we see, oh, there's stuff in the prizes I want in the deck, we might be able to get it into the deck again if we do this. So that's kind of neat, I guess. And then the Rotom Dex Finder mode is a little bit like a regular Pokedex, but you could shuffle the order of stuff as well. Not particularly useful, but, you know, if you are really into, like, pull one specific combo type deck, that might be a thing. And then finally, warp energy. It's never been very good in my opinion, because it's like, I think jet energy does this right in current standard, but having to attach to the active and then switch to the bench means that you don't have the energy on the active that's now there. It just feels really weird. There are some decks that could take advantage of this, especially with Jirachi, because if you want to go like Jirachi jet energy, not jet energy in this case, warp energy, right, attach to the Rachi, switch it for another Rachi that's got a skateboard, you could maybe get some stuff out of that. Too situational, doesn't really work with a lot of energy costs either. Yeah, there's so much stuff here in this rotation. I've probably missed a few things as well, because there are just like almost 1,000 cards rotating here. These sets are huge. There's like 5-6 of them, and it's just insane just seeing how much stuff is lost here. The main takeaway is that if you're not a GX Pokemon, you are unsearchable, and unless you're a psychic type specifically, you are unsearchable, and that basically kills so many more cards than what this actually shows. I think I've like slashed in half or more the amount of cards that I have in my, like, you know, good pools now, which is a right shame, but hey, still a lot of deck variety around. It's just going to be harder to get them to work, which is always a tough thing. Anyway, thank you very much if you have managed to stick around this long. I know it's a super long history part for it here, but I thank you for sticking around anyway, and until next time, take care everyone.